Well, it's the end of yet another week, and here on this channel, that means one thing and one thing only. Every weekend, I post an episode of this series we do called Your Take Not Mine, where I turn to you, the viewers, to give me your hottest NBA takes of the week based on what's going on at the time, and I then choose my favorite submissions and discuss them in a video. This week, the NBA draft went down, and there were also plenty of big trades made, so of course, there's plenty for us to discuss. In order to submit your takes, I make a community post on either the day of or the day before the video, similar to the one that you see on your screen now, so if you want a chance to be featured in a future episode, be sure to stay on the lookout for that. Before we start though, it turns out about 60% of you watching right now aren't even subscribed to the channel, so please, if you enjoy the content, consider hitting the subscribe button, as not only does it help out a ton, but I would also very much appreciate it. Now with that being said, let's begin. The first take we'll be discussing comes to us from Nick, and he says that Kyle Kuzma will win the league's Most Improved Player of the Year award next season now that he is on the Wizards, where he'll be able to have a bigger role in the offense. Kyle Kuzma, from the very beginning of his career, has been a difficult player to properly figure out, and every year his performance on the court features tons of ups and downs. He's a score-first player by nature, who has proven in the past that he's capable of heating up and getting buckets in a variety of ways, but at the same time, he's not consistent enough or efficient enough to justify making him a go-to option on a winning team. This is why his status on the Lakers was so weird over the last few seasons, because the team already had a championship-level core with two elite go-to guys in LeBron James and Anthony Davis, so Kuzma did not have nearly as much freedom as he will now have on the Wizards. Again, though, the conundrum is that Kuzma's not that great in the other aspects of the game. So where the Lakers needed more of a spot-up shooter who could play defense and embrace a more limited role, Kuzma just isn't that guy. In Washington, he will definitely be given more freedom and a bigger role on offense, and his production should absolutely improve across the board. I could definitely see him at least being in the conversation for Most Improved solely for the sake of his numbers increasing, but I'm not sure exactly how impactful he'll be for the Wizards. Washington is in a weird spot right now, where they have Bradley Beal at his best, and the team around him isn't really good enough to compete, so whether they hover in mediocrity or end up blowing it all up, it could make or break this take as a whole. The next take we'll be discussing comes to us from Vivek, and he says that acquiring Russell Westbrook was a terrible mistake for the Los Angeles Lakers. So, obviously, the biggest news in the NBA world outside of the draft happening was that the Lakers made a big trade that landed them Russell Westbrook to pair with LeBron James and Anthony Davis. Westbrook has been one of the best players at the point guard position for years, and is a former MVP winner, but over the last few seasons, he's had fairly inconsistent years, filled with entertainingly high highs, but also some frustratingly low lows. He's one of the most polarizing players in the league. His production has always been questioned by fans as to whether or not it's inflated or actually impactful, and he hasn't exactly performed well in the postseason in recent years. With all of that being said though, calling this trade a terrible mistake for the Lakers is definitely a huge overreaction, especially considering the price they paid for him. They were looking to get rid of Kuzma, Montrezl Harrell, and KCP in the offseason anyway, and honestly, Russ is just about as good of a return as they could have gotten. Now, there are of course some legitimate concerns about his fit on the Lakers, as he obviously operates best with the ball in his hands while lacking a consistent outside shot, and that doesn't exactly feel like a great fit alongside LeBron James, but the Lakers lineup as a whole is still in desperate need of some shooting. But honestly, when it comes to the top talent in the NBA, they more often than not figure out how to make it work, and while things aren't ideal on paper, they should still very easily be one of the best teams in the West next year. The next take we'll be discussing comes to us from Laser, and he says that the Raptors were right to take Scottie Barnes ahead of Jalen Suggs because Scottie has a higher ceiling. So the NBA draft that just went down on Thursday started fairly according to plan, with the first 3 selections being somewhat predictable, but once the Raptors were on the clock at 4, that's where the unpredictability began. They surprised a lot of people, myself included, by taking Scottie Barnes over Jalen Suggs, who was the presumed pick. And the immediate reaction was that they made a mistake. When I posted my draft grades video, I gave my thoughts on the matter, but that video was made immediately after it happened, and now that I've had a few days to really think about it, and the dust has settled, I can honestly say I'm starting to come around on this pick. The pre-draft workout process that can at times result in teams overreacting isn't always the case though, and everything I've seen has said that Barnes has been unbelievable in his pre-draft workouts that he's taken part in, and Suggs really struggled. The prospects also meet with the teams beforehand in interviews as well, and Barnes really seems to take a liking to Toronto, and he feels like someone who's ready to embrace the Raptors as home. Also, his identity on defense will fit right into what head coach Nick Nurse loves. Barnes has as much defensive potential as anyone in the draft. He's a hard worker who has expressed that he wants to improve his jumper, and he just plays smart basketball with high IQ that always looks to make the right play. He may not have quote-unquote star potential per se, but he will almost assuredly be a highly impactful player in a lineup for a long time. And finally, the last take we'll be discussing today comes to us from Sal, and he says that this upcoming season will be the last chance the Brooklyn Nets have to win a ring together with their current Big Three. This may seem a bit extreme on the surface because nothing is really preventing Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant, and James Harden from staying together for a while and continuing to try to dominate the East together beyond this season. But the one thing that gives this take a decent amount of credibility is the fact that all three of those players have a player option in their contracts after this year that they can opt out of. So if things were to end in disaster, all three of those superstars have the choice to enter free agency after this season, and things could come to a screeching halt for the franchise. Last season, injuries undoubtedly hampered their ability to contend for a title, as Kyrie Irving went down midway through their run, and James Harden suffered a similar fate before trying at least to play through the injury, but to no avail. Kevin Durant almost single-handedly got the Nets past the now champion Bucks in the second round, but while they came up short, that was definitely a good sign for things to come when the team is at full strength. The Nets will be a team plenty of people pick to win it all next year, and for good reason, and they should absolutely be one of the best teams in the whole league. So in a way, given the circumstance, it very well could be championship or bust for them. Depending on how their season ends, I would assume they will all opt into their player options, but as we've learned countless times over the years, nothing is ever set in stone in the NBA. And with that being said, that's all I have for you today. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below what you think about the takes we discussed. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.